happy to introduce Matt Newton from Virginia Tech. He's our TTAC specialist at Virginia Tech. And then Catherine Martin is a Virginia TTAC specialist at George Mason. And they are going to do an awesome session on assistive technology. And yes, you're going to learn what universal design for learning is during their session. And you probably will also realize that you incorporate a lot of it already without even realizing that you were doing that. So I'm going to let you guys take it away.
All right. Well, thanks, Kristen. And those of you that have been on with us from the beginning have heard us joking a little bit about being in the last session and, you know, maybe not being the best or the best for last, but we're going to try to keep up the standard that's been set by all the folks that you've heard from so far, and talk about some really cool and interesting things that you may have had to dive in with both feet to during the last school year in working with a lot of technology that may have been new for you, but hopefully you learn some things and some, you know, silver linings or benefits from that you'll be able to bring on into the next year as well. Hopefully one that's a little bit more traditional. But like Kristen said, I'm Matt Newton. I'm the coordinator of assistive and educational or instructional technology at the TTAC at Virginia Tech. I've been doing this for about 6 years now, serving around 34 different school divisions in the far southwest of Virginia. And I know from looking at the roster today that we have some folks from our area. It's good to see you here. And Catherine, do you want to say hello too?
Sure. Hi, I am Catherine Martin. I am actually a new TTAC representative or coordinator from Region 4. And I was a math.
It would be hard to control.
I was a math
That's
teacher.
Kim Bossum Brown too.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, for
Sorry,
8.5 years. Oh, no worries. I was a math teacher for 8.5 years. And fun fact, if anybody has the survival guide for new special education teachers, I am one of the co-authors of that.
Awesome. So a lot of folks probably do have that. And that's a little bit about our background, but again, you probably heard us joking earlier too, that we are also, it's not lost on us that we are the last session that you have even before you go and grab your lunch and before you finish this whole event that you've committed your time to over the summer. So we appreciate you hanging on with us here at the end. We're going to keep this hopefully engaging and exciting with a lot of good info for you to take away and put a nice bow on this. So if you are a person who likes lots of executive function supports like me, you like to see an agenda before we get started when we come to something like this, so that you know so the topics we're going to be addressed and sort of what we're expected to take away at the end of it, but also where we are in the process of getting done with this. And we've heard a few people talk already about UDL and what is that. I'm sure there are several folks in the room here that have some experience with it. There's Sherry raising her hand. Yep, she has some experience with that and asked about that. But UDL is just the short little acronym for Universal Design for Learning. And we're going to get into what that is a little bit as much as we can in 90 minutes today with everything we have to share. But hopefully we can whet your appetite for that to dig in and learn more about it and give you some tools to use. And then speaking of tools, we couldn't get out of here. We're going to spend not the bulk, but a significant amount of our time in looking at some different assistive technology tools that can support your elementary age students in math and reading. There are a lot that are out there. It can sometimes be kind of hard to sift through and find out what's right for your students. So we're going to give you some highlights and provide you some resources that you can take with you, and we'll be with you digitally as you go through the summer and get into your next school year. As I know it's hard to really digest a lot of information all at once, and you're already at the end of this day, at the end of a week. So we wanted to be able to give you something that you can take your own time to explore some of these tools, because practice, you know, whether we're talking about a new software program or device, practice really does make perfect with learning how all the features work and how to implement it with your students. So we'll take a look at that. And then, of course, we'll link you to some further resources with our short time today. We certainly can't cover everything in this field, and we want you to be able to find out more if this is an area that interests you quite a bit. But without any further ado, we're going to jump into our content for the day. And I know we have some math teachers here, so including Catherine raising her hand there with this. She has a very different answer to this question than I do, and probably Kristen does as well. I can see her face on the screen, so I can poke at her about this as well. But having been a past special ed teacher and ITRT in my division, I was never a math teacher. So I have a very specific answer to this. When I look at it, when I see this equation, I start to feel a little bit stressed, like I don't know where to do with this or where to start. Though, if you would like to drop how this equation makes you feel into the chat box, I would like to see it. Oh, scared. There we got some people that are on board with me there to see that. It is elementary level here too. Oh, overwhelmed, nervous, lost, run. All of that. Letters screwed up math. Oh yes. Okay, here we go. Why do they?
I want to say that is not elementary level. That is way higher than I have to teach in 5th grade. So there
you go. Now, what is this called again, Catherine? Tell me. It's a quadratic equation.
This is
right?
The quadratic formula. It can be used anytime to find zeros, roots, solutions, x-intercepts.
See, isn't that just gross that she can pull that out just like that and talk about it with that and smile about it all along the way as she's doing that? But as in math is one of those subjects that tends to have, shall we say, passionate emotions that go along with it one way or another sometimes. And we know emotions can cloud our abilities to sometimes engage with something, to learn something. So just kind of take bank of the feeling you're feeling with this right now. Although it is a little bit above the grade level that you guys are teaching at, I think it's illustrative of how math at a lot of different levels can make us feel. But it's not just something that is only happens with math. Sometimes we can see, overwhelmed and when we talk about reading too. Look at all of this text on the screen. Now, I want all of you to read this text, and I want you to summarize it and give me the main idea. And we'll have that by the end of the class period, okay? And I can see everybody just jumping on that right now as we go through reading all of this to see it. So, math is not exclusive when we talk about the feelings that it can kind of drum up in us and our students, and how it can impact our performance when it comes to learning activities and engaging in instructions and different things like that. And if you layer on top or underneath those feelings and stressors about engaging with materials like this, a disability, then the hurdle that you are going to have to cross is even higher than what it might have been for just your student who might be more typically developing. Now, math teachers here, I'm going to give you another number. This one's not meant to be as scary as the front one, but I do think it's going to give you some different emotional feelings that you're going to look at. And it's the number 164,000. There are, and what is that number, Matt? That's the approximate number of students in Virginia that are receiving special ed services under IDEA. About 13% of the total student population do that. So that's quite a bit, right? As we go through, Sherry says, wow, while she's not driving. She's saying wow about this and not a deer running across the road or something like that. There are quite a bit. Now, if you're going to say wow to that number, you're really going to like this number, math teachers that are out here. It's the number 8,200. So out of that 164,000 students that are receiving special ed services under IDEA in Virginia, about 8,200 of them, roughly 5% of them, have some sort of assistive technology written in their IEP. Now, Catherine, my math friend, told me that 5% is roughly 1 in 20. All right. So that helps me. Is no one going to ask why the zeros have eyes? It's because it's looking at you, Terry. That's why this number is staring right into your soul, so that you can see this and see that we are no doubt missing the boat when it comes to serving our students with disabilities in this field, considering that, assessing it. And there are a number of different reasons beyond this, but I wanted you to see that the sort of number comparison, because before our brain can really get information and be motivated to act on it, we can know things in our brain, but until we feel it in our heart too, a lot of times we're not super motivated to make changes or do things differently in our professional or our personal lives, right? So sort of seeing those numbers and how we're missing it, I feel like that gives you that heart feel that you need to take this information away. Now, again, I know this is elementary that we're working through here, but I wanted to give you some numbers from this as well. For students that go through the secondary area of this, we're talking about students who received AT and those who do not have AT and have not been working with that through the course of time. You can see the differences in the numbers here and the impact that having this service appropriately provided impacts as far as graduation, post-secondary enrollment, and just getting a paying job when you're out of school as well. So again, think about that boat that we're missing and moving back. And not being lost that, again, this is an elementary age group. Don't think that this is something that you guys don't have a huge impact on in this age group as well. This is a rather small study. You can see that it only totals up to about 13 students that had some different AT provisions put in there into their daily activities to see how that was impact them. But you can see, and you probably know students like this with autism spectrum disorder, SLD, cognitive disability, developmentally delayed, that you would see in your classroom, about 13 of them. Small study, but 11 of the 13 of them showed improvement on the IEP goal pre-test and post-test that the experimenters worked on this. The average ability level on each of these went up from 36 to 67%. And the ET intervention was found to have the most significant impact on these results, right? Followed by related service reports and task modifications. The two that we frankly often go to first, so related service supports and task modifications before AT. So I hope I'm selling you on this point as we get into our content. But you're probably asking yourself, well, why don't we do more with this if it works so well? Well, as Catherine and I work with different divisions and talk to people, we've learned that there are a number of things that often pop themselves to the top of the list as to why teachers and teams don't do more with AT in the schools. There is, you may or may not be surprised, a sort of thought amongst some that AT and doing this can be a form of cheating, that we're giving a student an advantage that other student might not have to read text or do calculations, things like that. Excuse me, that's not necessarily necessary. That is out there. Some people really see AT as a last resort to be considered. Yes, thank you, Terry. Very much a myth in doing that we're going to try everything else. We're going to try every other intervention and program that we can purchase and paraprofessional support and everything else before we get to AT, because that's the last thing we want to try in doing that. That's a thought that's out there as well. You may be in that camp. But the largest camp of all is folks that they just don't know about assistive technology, what it is, how it works, what might be appropriate for a student, who qualifies, etc. And by attending something like this today, we're hoping we can torpedo and sink that ship so that you won't be in that answer category anymore. But a big step, though, is getting started with this. And how do I start making the modifications and the considerations that I need to work with students in the field of assistive technology, those with disabilities, and getting them access, whether they're attending in school or they're attending at a distance. So we're going to try to help you get started with these first steps today. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick.
Hey, Matt, I was just going to jump in here about the importance. I love those numbers. It's so powerful. My daughter actually has an autism spectrum disorder. She started out in small classes and worked all the way up to AP classes. She just graduated, thanks to teachers like you, with a degree in math and computer science, and starts in 2 weeks at a defense contractor, a real job in computer science. But when she was in high school, because of her autism, she has difficulties with fine motor skills. And I look at some of our new technologies, specifically Equatio, that would have helped her tremendously. And she actually has low muscle tone in her hands. And I can remember her through high school. She studied so hard, her complaining about how her hand hurt so much. So just piggybacking, there are so many students that we can help and enhance. And she had great outcomes, but boy, she endured a lot of pain.
Imagine. So in going through that, my daughter is in first grade and has juvenile arthritis and has some different accommodations for writing and things like that as well. So yep, it can be really huge. But in going back, and what Catherine said is exactly right, in getting started on this, if I move back, where many folks and teachers, especially new teachers, but even veteran teachers that have been doing this for a long time as well, want to start is by going directly to the technology. And we're going to try to hold you back from that, even though AT is a wonderful product that is very strong and has wonderful outcomes. There is a first step that you need to go through first, and that is looking at your instruction through the framework of Universal Design for Learning, UDL. Thinking about the design of your lessons and your activities before we start thinking about accommodations. UDL has 3 different principles, this framework for looking at your instruction that you can see on the screen right now. Different modes of representation, different modes of action and expression for your students to express what they learn, and different ways to engage them. And I would never try to talk to you about something or say you should do this without giving you the resources that you would need on your own time to be able to look at this and make these changes and these different changes to maybe the way your instruction or activities are going right now. The website on the right side of this screen is from an organization known as CAST, the Center for Applied Special Technology. And within the CAST website, and we'll give you more information about that later as well, you're going to find a number of different tools that you can use to help design your instruction with universal design in mind. And through this, when we look through engagement, representation, and action and expression, I know this picture isn't exactly the best. It's how I could fit it on the screen. You can see that UDL sets up a number of different areas and checkpoints for you to look at the different and for you to check yourself as you're designing your instruction as you go through this. Just in going down through engagement, through representation, through action and expression, you can see the 3 different categories of UDL, and then across sort of the questions about access, about build, and about internalizing things. And if you look, you can see, you can ask yourself, is the activity that I'm putting together in recruiting interest, optimizing choice and autonomy, optimizing relevance, value, and authenticity, minimizing threats and distractions? And you can go through and look at the activities that you put together in design using a chart like this. And we have one that's even easier for teachers to use coming up in terms of co-planning, because I know that many of you are working on co-planning together in doing this. You'll notice too, as my arrow pops up there, that using assistive technology is part of UDL, but it's the small circle inside the bigger circle of that Venn diagram. It's a part of universal design, but it's not the entire thing. Universal design is that larger framework that's going to help you with the design of your activities. That chart is very complex and has a lot of words on it. So I thought I might try to boil this down for you a little bit when it comes to lesson planning with UDL. It's all about being proactive in addressing potential barriers that you can see with your students, because you understand that they vary from student to student with their interests, their skill levels, their challenges, their engagement, interest, and favorite things to do, and being proactive with that design. Excuse me. And not looking at the students and asking why aren't they engaged in this lesson, but looking at your lesson and saying, what can I do to make this lesson more engaging? UDL is also very big in emphasizing the destination or the goal, but not the path. Take a look at your lesson. What do you want your students to be able to accomplish at the end of the day? That SOL, that bullet that you're looking at, wanting to be able to master that skill. Does it really matter how they get there? If they typed it or they hand wrote it? letting the path change, move along with learner variability is one of the principles of UDL and will help you to boil down something that's a little bit more complex. For your guys' use, we found this in our research to do this, and you'll be able to click and download and use this as much as you would like. This is a step-by-step planner for UDL lesson design that you and your co-teacher can use to go through to help analyze your lesson goal, to think about the variability in learners that are present in your classroom, and then to think about different ways that you can represent the instructional materials that you want to put out there. It goes on to, in helping you to check on action and expression. Did we do this? Did the design strategy support the learning goal? And then implementing it, putting it through the actual giving the lesson process, and then taking that last step of reflecting and redesigning what you need at the very end. I don't know about you, but I like a checklist of things that say, I'm going to do this, this, and this to be able to go through as you do that and check this off. And much like Kristen said at the beginning of the presentation, a lot of you are already doing this just naturally as good teachers. But if you need some more guidance for making sure that you're covering these bases, a document like this can be worth quite a bit of help to you, and you're welcome to use it as much as you would like. Planning with UDL. So maybe a concrete example for you to look at here. In looking at the learning outcome, is very math organized, math oriented here. In that, using a visual model, students will show how fractions are equivalent with attention to how the number and size of the parts differ through two different fractions are the same. Those two different fractions are the same size. If you're considering, again, being proactive and looking at the potential barriers and your learning variability in there, you're going to know that your students, or you're going to identify, don't know what equivalency means, and that students have only been exposed to one fractional model, like a circle diagram. All right. So to minimize barriers, if you're going through the UDL process, you might, as a co-teaching planning pair, say what we can do to overcome that barrier would be to provide a graphic organizer that cues students in key terms like equivalency in the math lesson, and even giving the students a packet that includes cutout manipulatives like fraction bars or something that they can use while they're doing these practice tasks, easy for me to say, or other virtual manipulatives. And they might even need a little bit of extra instruction about how to use those. But just for example, in math, how something like that might work out and going through that checklist planner, identifying, being proactive, identifying potential barriers, variabilities in your students, and how you might go over them. We can't get away from this part without at least mentioning too, that we know that although it hopefully, fingers crossed, this next school year is going to be a lot more typical than last year, that there is going to still be a larger than in the past likely component of students that are participating online. The Center on Online Learning and Students with Disabilities has a number of different resources that you can look at to apply the UDL framework to your lesson designs, and will even give you a scanning tool that you can drop information about your activities in, excuse me, to check the UDL components of it in sort of an automated way. So we couldn't get away without doing that. But as we sort of wrap up the UDL part of it, by going through all this, who am I going to impact? Who am I going to impact? Well, remember we said 13% of students with disabilities in Virginia classrooms, roughly is the statistic. Looking at UDL and putting the effort in up front to apply this framework to your lesson designs is going to impact more than that, because we all know as we walk into Target, the grocery store, we're pushing a baby stroller or rolling your bicycle or a scooter down the sidewalk. We appreciate universal design in our own life, whether that's a curb cut or automated doors at the store that we can go through as we're passing our basket. Everybody benefits from universal design in your classroom. It's going to be, implementing UDL principles is just good instruction, says Kristen. It's not something different. It's just something that's the foundational baseline for that. And you're going to impact and benefit a lot of students. And the secret is in the sauce here, sometimes by planning with UDL, you're going to reduce the amount of students that need accommodation and assistive technology to be able to participate in your learning activities. And you're not even going to have to approach that because you have a nice universally designed lesson to be able to engage with. Sherry, did I see you raise your hand? Did you have a question? Okay, maybe
No,
she's just giving.
I'm sorry, I must have hit it by accident.
You're just giving us a high five.
Oh, yeah, for that too.
We'll take it as that. But just know that UDL is an overall design framework that we've looked at, but there are always going to be exceptions. There's going to be students who just universally designing your instruction, it's not going to be enough for them to be able to engage. And that's when we take the next step into starting to consider AT tools and strategies that might be useful for them. All right. And if that seems familiar, like tiers of support, you're exactly right. Again, like Kristen said a minute ago, UDL is just good tier 1 instruction for everybody, right? To be able to do that. Thumbs up, says Catherine. As we move up into the smaller groups and then to the individuals in our tiers, we're going to be talking a lot more about AT and the tools they need to have. Now, when we get into specific AT and technology supports for students, there is sometimes a question among teachers and among administrators whether, you know, all this technology stuff, this accessibility, this communication device, this text-to-speech software, is this, man, that's nice, but is this a fringe benefit? Is this a nice to have, like that Cafe Corso coffee maker, when what we're trying to really look at here is the good old Black & Decker Mr. Coffee on the side? Is it a nice to have, or is it a high leverage practice that we're working on here, an HLP? And you might be surprised to know and like to have in your knowledge quiver when discussing, oh, it's a Black & Decker, thank you. I couldn't tell from the side there. Your quiver when you're talking with your administrators, when you're talking with your IEP team, when you're talking with families to make cases about implementing AT and IT with students, that why, yes, it is an identified high leverage practice. There is research and evidence-based support for doing this with your students in the classroom. And it's not just a fringe benefit or a nice to have or the fancy coffee machine, rather than just the workhorse one, the basic one that we'd be able to need. It is number 19 in the HLPs. I like to think that that's a lot of points and not far down the road of the ones that you need, but it is in there in doing that. So with that being said, Catherine and I want to help you kind of dig in and explore some AT options in reading and in math. To do this, some things that we've identified, and we built a website for you to show you a number of tools, and we're going to kind of give you some features and walkthroughs on this. So I think Allison, our helper, is about 40 or so people in here. The whole idea with kind of breaking you up into these two groups was that we would have Catherine, who is much more math inclined than I am, talk about the math apps and some of those things there. And I'll talk about more of the reading things on this side. That's a little bit more my bag, but also so that we would have smaller rooms so people would be, you know, more, we hope that you're more inclined to go ahead and ask questions and do things verbally like that. Because as I'm sharing here, I can't see the chat box very well. So if you do have a question that pops up, just go ahead and unmute and ask me. That's fine. If we have a lot of people talking over one another, then we can stop and do that, and we'll try a different way. But the bit.ly that you see on your screen now, if you would like to type that in, it's just bit.ly /UDL ATPG. You're going to go to the UDL and Assistive Technology Playground, that website that we built for you guys to have. And this website will remain up over the course of, I'm not planning on taking it down unless Google starts charging us for us to do that. So you should be able to go to that in the next school year and access these resources whenever you need them. And you may, over the course, if you come back to it at a later time, find ones that pop up for science and in some other areas too. But For right now, we're kind of focused on UDL, reading, writing, and math, because that is the focus of the academies that we're looking at today. And I know I just made a big teacher boo-boo in that I gave you like something to look at on your computer, and now you're going to look at that and lose track of this, but that's okay, because I'm going to just sort of take you through this resource website and show you some landmarks and kind of focus areas that we think are important, and some highlighting tools that you may use that we know are popular and have a lot of efficacy. But please feel free, as I'm talking, if you want to click through and look at different stuff on this, you find something that interests you and you want to dig more into it, but it's not what I'm on, don't feel like you have to follow me, okay? This is for you to take a look at and explore. So this is our UDL and AT playground that we have set up. And it is a resource we built to try to bring a whole bunch of AT and UDL information together in a one-stop shop for you. There are a lot of softwares and different devices and tools and products out there. Some have free trials, some are free for teachers. And that sort of, we built this to bring all those things together so that you can look and see, maybe I want to try that. Okay, I can try it for free. I didn't know that. So that you can see it in one spot. But can you see my my desktop right now? Somebody say yes if you can. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for doing that. And then of course we have contact information down here at the bottom as well. I'm going to take you through, like I said, a little walkthrough of what's here on the page. And under the first tab for UDL, what we started off with talking about this morning is some of the resources that we looked at. This one very quickly, the UDL lesson design step-by-step planner. This is linked over here that you can click and download this when you need it and want to use it to be able to go through it. There are some videos setting up seeing UDL in class action to be able to do this. More information, that graphic that's easier to see and that you can make your own about the principles of UDL. And then if this is, too many words can't read, right? As you look at this, over here to the side, there is a more slimmed down version of this chart right here, so that you can look through it and find the different components of UDL in easier language, fewer words, about how to provide multiple means of engagement, how to provide multiple means of representation and action of it and expression as well. As we come down here a little bit further, if you're somebody who, rather than a checklist, would rather ask questions and answer questions about whether you're ticking off different components, this is the key questions to consider when planning lessons document that allows you to ask yourself questions about your lesson activity that you have as you're planning putting UDL into this. And then last but not least, at the very bottom of this page is the UDL and distance and online virtual learning resources that we have, because we'll no doubt still have some students that will be participating with you online. And these links will take you to some online assignment best practices in this area, 6 highlighted UDL best practices for online learning. And then the very bottom of the page is a website called School Virtually. And it has videos and more resources than I can possibly put on one website. I just tried to consolidate them for you here to be able to take a look at it. And thanks, Stacy, for dropping that link into the chat box for everybody. So that's sort of the highlights and landmarks of what we have under UDL. Let's go back up to the top and move over to reading AT. Now, some of these tools I expect may be somewhat familiar to you, and some of them may be brand new. Some of your divisions may have some of these tools, some of them may not. But throughout the course of this page, you're going to be able to click icons and buttons for more information. And again, I encourage you to explore. I'm going to take you through a little bit of this and just show you some of the big highlights in each area to kind of wet your whistle and give you an example of what they can do. the very first thing that we come across or type of AT that we find under reading AT are these common computer-based text-to-speech options. The first icon that I have over here to the right is for Read and Write for Google, which has been around for a long time and a lot of folks are familiar with. If you are, you can raise your hand on Zoom, you can drop it in the chat if you've seen this before. But if you didn't know, Read and Write is actually free for educators. It is a paid program, although the text-to-speech, the real most important basic component of this this software is free for everybody, the text-to-speech issue. But if you click the button below here, if you haven't done this yet, you can, I have somebody trying to come in, here we go. You can register for free Read and Write, and you'll hear about Equatio from Catherine in a minute too, access for you to be able to do this in these areas. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a rep for these companies. I work for you all. When you register, you are giving Text Help your email. They will ask you for that. And so you will get promotional emails from them from time to time because nothing is really free, right? They're building a database of teachers that they can advertise further to. But I will say that they're not spamming you every day. It isn't a whole bunch of stuff that you're getting 9 emails a day from them. You may get something weekly, monthly like that. So it's not overwhelming. And it is a good deal to be able to get this software and see what it can do for you. Now, those of you that aren't familiar with Read and Write, it works as a toolbar that overlays at the top of your screen. If you see my screen now, you can see that it has a number of different options that are up here at the top. And I've just pulled up a Wikipedia article about Abraham Lincoln here so that I can show you some of the things that it can do. Now, if this was text that I was assigned to read in doing this, what you can do with Read and Write, and I need to refresh to make sure it is on and ready to go. Click my button again. Hopefully it'll pop up for me. It did. I can highlight this area here, and you're probably not going to hear the read aloud, but you should see it. If I click this button here, did you guys hear it read? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. With this, when you're putting it on through Zoom, I'm not sure I clicked the share audio box when I did that, but you saw the highlighting as it went. It read that sentence aloud. The article is about the 16th president of the United States. Again, that feature is free. Nobody ever has to pay a subscription. I won't say ever because these things change all the time, but for a very, very long time, that has been a free part of this. And so I don't anticipate it going away anytime soon. What did you say, Kim?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, come right on in. She got very excited about that to see it. Some other features with Read and Write that can help your students along the way. If let's highlight the word, I don't know, Illinois here. Okay. And I come up here, there are a couple of dictionary options that can be chosen, including a picture dictionary that will show you graphics of what that is. Or, I didn't select my word. Let's go back. So let's select Congressman. And you might notice these buttons here as well. It will read this aloud to you as well to be able to do this. So just some of the fun features, there are a number of them in Read and Write that are up here. There are dictionaries, the read aloud. This is a screen shading tool that you can change the width and the color to be able to do this if you have students that have focus needs in doing that. And one of the really nifty things that it can do, particularly if you happen to be a Google school division, is you can go through and highlight different areas. Let's go to Congressman maybe and highlight that. And then you can tell it to collect your highlights, sort them. And if things work right here, I will give it permission. It should pop up momentarily with a Google document just containing the highlights that I have. And you can create definition sheets and things like this as well. Now, overall, Read and Write is a paid program to be able to do it. Yeah, nice for older students. You're exactly right in doing this, and being able to highlight or have things read aloud as you go through there. So that's a little bit about Read and Write and what it can do. I don't want to take too much time looking at these different things in the same category anyway, but Snap and Read is sort of the Pepsi to Read and Write's Coke in doing it. Again, a paid program, and they have recently set it up so that one teacher and one student can get a free license to Snap and Read. So if this is something that your school division doesn't have in the budget right now, you don't have access to something like this, you can sign up. Once again, sharing your email, you'll get some periodic marketing emails from Don Johnston on this, but you will get a free license for you and one of your students to trial Snap and Read, and making things easier to read on the computer, whether it's a distance student or somebody that's at home. These tools can help work you through that process. All right, any questions on those? Are most people familiar? They're pretty common. I think a lot of folks are familiar with these tools, but they bear repeating because some folks have not seen them used previously. Before I leave this section behind to highlight for you, I know there are a lot of Chromebooks out there, a lot of Chromebooks that divisions have. If you are in a division where getting something like Read and Write or Snap and Read and working through the different processes to put that feature filled of a software onto your computer is a problem, then you should know that if you have Chromebooks or if you have PC laptops, both of these, I don't see a whole lot of Macs and Apple at least laptops out there in schools. There are some iPad tablets and things like that. Know that speech to text, or I'm sorry, text to speech is also built into the software that is in your computer. So if your student has a Chromebook, if they have a PC laptop, if they happen to be fortunate enough to have a Mac laptop, or they're doing art or something like that on there are, and again, if you click on these icons, the directions for how to get your Chromebook to read text that's on your screen aloud. So this can be done just with your basic Chromebook without any extension or additional software. It's not quite as accurate, although none of these things are perfectly accurate or feature filled as Read and Write and Snap and Read. You don't have highlighting tools and some of the things, the screen shading and things like that. But if you're just looking to make text on a computer screen more accessible to your students, then a great place to start, and usually where we suggest people start, is with the built-in operating system text-to-speech software. So you can find out more about that, and your students should be able to access it. We've included down here as well some videos for you that show you, in particular, Google Read and Write and Don Johnson's Snap and Read software, so that you can see a little bit more about how those work. And I know one time seeing that is one thing, being able to go back and check it out multiple times can help as well. If you're somebody that has tablets, we know that we have things that we want our students to read, particularly in elementary school, that maybe they're not on the Chromebook, right? But maybe we have iPads in our classroom and we want them to read a book or something like that. So there are a number of different mobile applications that use a technology known as OCR, which stands for optical character recognition. You may see that around sometimes, that you can use to snap pictures of pages and books and then have it read aloud if you happen to have this in your classroom. And I'm going to try now. I think everybody, if you see my hand there in a new kind of video that popped up on the screen here, as I go through this, I have a little book over here that I have, and I'm using the Claro Scan Pen app on here, one that's just called Dragon Gets By. All right, everybody see Dragon? All right, So if I open up to a page here in Dragon and use this ClaroScan Pen app, I can come over and I can take a picture before it goes to sleep here of the book, the page, and it's going to scan it. All right, now it's into my phone as a scan. And now I can take my finger and I can highlight. Again, you can't hear it, but you can see it happening. The sentences in the book that I want read. So this allows you to have a mobile way to do that as well. This app is $9.99 usually, so it's not free, but it is not necessarily expensive either. It goes on sale for I think $6.99 sometimes. Yeah, it is a great tool. There are a lot of these OCR text-to-speech apps out there. This one has been around for a long time, and I always keep coming back to it when folks ask me about it. Does it read without expression? It reads with a computer voice, it does. But if I go into the settings, you can change your voice, you can change your speed. I know that's an issue sometimes for folks. You can change your selection, whether you want to, if you touch the page, the scan is going to read everything. That would be the all choice, line by line, or even word by word, if you're somebody that just needs that level of support. Usually it defaults to line by line to be able to do that. Okay, but yeah, it is going to have, it's not going to have a super expressive voice with lots of fluency and stuff in there, but it is understandable, and you can change it to a boy's voice, a girl, a more female sounding voice. And if you have students from that English is not their first language, you can change that around for them as well to be able to hear it that way. There are a couple of other options as we go into that as well that are free. If you have or happen to be an Office 365 division, Microsoft Lens is a free app that will work for you and will also bring text in and out of OneNote and Word and those different tools. And then Seeing AI is a third app that works really, really well. It's meant for students that have significant visual impairments. So it might have a few too many features for someone that's just trying to have a little bit of text read to them, although it does that really well. But it is free, and it is opportunity for iOS as well. There are, again, demo videos for each of these on here so that you can see how each one works and how to set them up. I'd included reading pens on here as well, because I know some divisions have purchased these and they have been around for a while. The C Pen reader is very popular. Starts at about $250 to do that. For the most part, since I'm speaking with elementary aged teachers here, I don't recommend C Pen readers for students usually under 4th grade for sure, if they're real determined, but usually about 5th grade, because it takes a very determined student with a certain amount of maturity, and that happens different times for different students, to take a pen and hand scan text they need to read on a piece of paper. Particularly when there are so many apps that do it on an iPad or an iPhone or tablet that you can snap it and just do it that way. It's a lot more error proof than hand scanning. So a little bit older students, these are good for in doing that. I would recommend. The OrCam read that you see over there as well is very expensive. If you want to know, shoot me a direct message in the chat and I'll tell you how much it costs. But if you have a student with significant reading issues that needs text read on paper, on computer screens, out in the environment, something they can carry around and take it, it might be something to try out with them as well. All right. Accessible text options are down here. Each of these will take you to some different options to check out as far as ways to get books, digital files of text, assignments, things like that that you might create, converted into something that assistive technology is very compatible and can work with. AIM Virginia, I know that you all are probably quite familiar with them. They do a great service. If your student is eligible for AIM Virginia services, and the process for becoming eligible has been streamlined, and some of the past difficulties with that have been removed. I would encourage you, if you have had trouble in the past working with AIM Virginia and getting your students eligible, that you look at it again, because they can provide you with opportunities to, again, have activities, units that you might create, text turned into an accessible file that a student could use a screen reader or something like that with. Or you could even, it also gets you free access to tools like Bookshare and Learning Ally, where textbooks and novels and books just for fun are in digital format. Think Audible on Amazon, that students could access if they're having a very significant reading challenge, and that would be useful to them. The bottom of the page, as we get down to this, looks at full screen reading. This is going to be for your students with visual impairments, so much more likely a smaller group than your typical, or your students who just need a little help reading some text. But know that within Chromebooks, Apple products, including iOS products like Apple or iPad tablets, and Android devices and tablets, there are free built-in full screen reading tools that have keyboard controls that can help a student with a substantial visual impairment hear the text and the items that are on their screen read aloud to them. Again, for free. It's integrated into the operating system of Chrome OS, of iOS on Apple, and on the Android devices as well. And then we have some different video demonstrations for you to be able to take a look at as well. And then I can't not mention low-tech tools. That's always the best place to start with reading or with math, because they're cheap. If they break, nobody cares. You can get another one. They don't take much training to figure out, but take a look at things like highlighters and reading frames and sticky notes and highlighting tape and erasable highlighters. And the iPad in the picture there isn't a low-tech tool, but the corrugated cardboard making the stand that holds it up is, for somebody who may be positioned in a wheelchair or just need their text to be propped up a little bit to look at it. Take a look at these things and consider them first before jumping right into software sometime, and see if these might not be more beneficial and be able to support your student and giving them different ways, again, within UDL, to be able to act and express their knowledge and collect what you are trying to represent them in your learning activities. Line readers are good too. Yep, they got the, that's exactly right, Kimberly. That digital line reader that we had on Read and Write is one thing, but sometimes you just need some foil between a couple of pieces of cardboard made with a like an old manila file folder that you can highlight what you need and slim down what your students are seeing on the page. All right. Does anybody have any specific or even general comments about some of these things or questions that they might, before we flip over and I'm going to send you to math class? You're welcome. And again, this website is up for you. I know there's a lot of information on it that you can check out on your own time. I'm going to go ahead and see if Allison, are you in here?
How is everyone? I'm going to be going over math technologies today. Guys, I want this to be interactive. I just came from the classroom. I know how hard it is. So we're gonna do this together. Sound good? So I'm gonna share my screen real quick. I just wanted to get an idea first, and you're welcome to say it too or put it in the chat. What grades are you all teaching?
Third grade.
Third grade, okay.
Fourth.
Fourth. Third, fourth. Any other grades in here? Any little guys?
Or like second, third, kindergarten, all.
Kindergarten.
Okay, so we do have some kindergarten.
Fifth grade.
Okay, so some of these technologies are going to be more appropriate for different grades, obviously. And First, Desmos. Desmos is a calculator that is free. And that's awesome. I can't tell you how many, I used to teach Algebra 2 and how many kids, it was so unfair, didn't have like a TI-84 at home. But Desmos is free and they can download it to their phones. And at the younger ages, if you do start using some of the calculators, they can use that as well. What I love are some of the Desmos activities. You've got activity banks that are provided by VDOE, and I'm going to show you those. And you can create engaging activities through Desmos. Now, Quatio is probably one of the biggest tools that you're going to be using in the elementary level. It helps students write math in documents, and they write by either saying things verbally, or they can quote unquote write by actually just typing it in on their computers. And that helps students that have trouble writing or have any kind of fine motor issues. Quatio also has something called Math Share, which I think is really valuable for teachers who are teaching elementary school. You can create visuals. For example, some of their fraction materials are excellent. We're going to take a look at those, as well as some of the number lines that you can use to help develop number sense and manipulatives. And then finally, Math Share. These are the three that we're going to look at. Math Share, if you remember when they were talking about cognitive strategy instruction, Dr. Morano was, Math Share can be used in conjunction with it. So do any of you teach PEMDAS? Do fourth grade teachers teach PEMDAS? Or is that more fifth grade? Parentheses, exponent. Fifth grade, okay. So it works directly with like PEMDAS and any kind of multi-step equations. Math Share, I love it because it forces kids to press the pause key, slow down, and then they have to provide rationale. Why did you make this particular decision? So that's Math Share. So those are the three technologies that we're going to look at right now. So first of all, Desmos, I'm not going to worry about these right now. I think it just wasted my time in the last session. So the beauty of this is I learned from the mistakes of last one. Just out of curiosity, how familiar are you guys with Desmos? I mean, what would you say?
I know in Virginia Beach, it's linked to our curriculum, so we use it quite a bit.
Okay, great. So I used it extensively as well. In my in the last session, there were quite a few people that were not familiar with it, so I'll give you a rundown on it. You can use it on your computer or any kind of phone device too. You can create class activities, which is, I think, where it's really, really valuable. And then you can get data and feedback as well. What's cool is that VDOE actually, are you guys familiar with the VDOE's Desmos activities logs? Have you seen those? I'm going to show them to you. They're great. They're pre-created activities. Christian Williams said earlier that right now they go to from second grade on up, but they're developing activities from younger than second grade. So, and those should be posted this summer. Desmos also does have an activities bank that you can search for, and you can find pre-created warm-ups and exit tickets and numerous collaborative activities that are created. There's teacher dashboards, so you can monitor your students' learning, and then you can have students explain their thinking. So we're going to jump to this in just a minute. This is the Desmos VDOE's Desmos math activities. And Matt and I have on your resources page that you got through this whole seminar actually has this linked on it. So this is a copy of the VDOE's Desmos activities logs. You'll see around the bottom that you've got every single grade level, grade 2, 3, 4, 5 on up. But if we looked at, say, grade 3, because I know we have some teachers here, if you wanted a Desmos activity, I could jump right here. Check this out. Click here. and I could assign an activity to my students, which is fractions on a number line. And that's basically how that would work. I'm going to show you I don't know if you guys have seen Desmos's activities. Let's see, I have it open. What activity? I'm trying to see, here it is. So here's my personal Desmos account, and I can have classrooms, I can have, and that's what I typically did. So I have under mine, oops, I'm having a hard time seeing. I'm going to move my face and everyone else's face in Zoom real quick. So just bear with me. Oopsie, I didn't mean to do that. Let's see, going back here. Okay. But I can have my own classrooms established. I can send activities. I can create a classroom through Desmos. I can also, if I don't create a classroom through Desmos, I can actually launch it from my learning management system. It's really, really easy to use. But when we're first starting with it, just like everything else, what do you think we need? We need direct instruction in it, explicit instruction, and modeling. I'm always amazed, even at the secondary level, how many kids don't understand how to really use computers. So I show them exactly how to do it. Once you walk your kids through Desmos activities, the first time's always the hardest. And then just making sure that you're enforcing things consistently. They'll know what to do after a few times. There's a polygraph game that's really fun. It's kind of like a Guess Who, where you can pair students. That was one of my students' favorite games, and you can even play this at the younger level. And I've screenshotted on the next page just an activity. We don't have enough time today to play with that. I do have some tips to make the activity successful. First is to explicitly teach the vocabulary. You could provide a word bank for kids to use, and then explicitly teach students how to use the activity by modeling. So for example, one of the activities is a polygraph, and say, for example, I had a fraction that looked like that, and Elizabeth, you're trying to guess what I had. You could say, is the numerator a 1, for example? Is the denominator a 3? Is the part a 1? Those kinds of things. And you can't see my fraction. You're paired anonymously, and you're just basically, you can say it in a microphone, or even if kids want to type that in, they can type it back and forth. It's really pretty cool. I would say especially when you get into 3rd and 4th grade on up. You can teach them good questions, like the part is. So we always scaffolded by providing graphic organizers or questions, prompts, like the part is, the whole is. So this gives you an idea. Matt and I actually have a website, which we'll go to practice some of these in just a minute. So that is Desmos. And I know I have just gone through this super quickly, but at the end, I'm going to have you guys play with it. And on a website that Matt created, you've got videos that show you how to use it, that show you how to set this up. Trust me, it's really easy. I used to feel nervous, the first time I did it, but then after a while, it just got so easy. Next activity is Equatio. This I really see a lot of elementary school teachers, especially using. It's excellent. It is a editor that actually it's a Google Chrome extension, and I pinned it. I'll show it to you real quick. Do you see that blue little diamond right here? That's Equatio. So when I click on that, I can insert all kinds of equations or problems into my work. So students that have difficulty with their fine motor skills can literally just use Equatio. They can also speak into it and say like 1/2 times 2/3. They can type, oopsie, talk, draw. There's even a screen reader, which is pretty cool. Now, what I love, and I'm still learning this, is Equatio has a math space. And math space, I'm going to show you a Jamboard that I created just to give you a taste of some of the things you can create. Their math space has great fraction bars, number lines that you can create things with very easily, and your kids can then actually use Equatio to add information on without having to write, or they can write with Equatio too. You can assign collaborative work. It integrates with all of the Google products and Microsoft Words. You can use manipulatives from Equatio and also equation editors. So I'm going to show you really quick. I feel like I'm talking too much. A Jamboard that I created. So this Jamboard here, let me go, just to give you an idea. I added all of these, like 2x plus 3x minus 1 was super easy. And then I could do this, or even I can create manipulatives to represent this so that students with disabilities can more easily understand what I'm doing. What is this fraction? I created this, and kids can create this too and even test each other. All through Equatio. How much money is displayed? These are created for me already. I just put these up here. And then this is more advanced algebra and algebra 2. So that is a small, quick 411 on Equatio. And then I'm going to have you go on and play with these in a minute. MathShare is awesome. MathShare is a technology that the same company that created MathShare created Bookshare. And that's where you can answer problems step by step. Students can organize their thinking and explain why and how. It's especially helpful for multi-step problems. Again, there are accessibility features like text-to-speech and drawing. You can create assignments, post it to your learning management system, and then monitor students' progress very, very easily. So here's an example from Algebra 1 that would show, and students would use their microphone to show what is happening. So really quick, does everyone have a copy right here of the Google Sites Playground? I'm going to put this in the chat real quick. So you have it. Let's see. And really the remainder, if anybody has any questions, if you guys want to go on into the Google Playground that looks just like this and play around, you can set up accounts. And I'm here for any questions that you have. Does that sound good? I feel like I went way too fast.
I'm Thomasine. I have a quick question. You shared, and because I don't have the CTERM PDF pulled up for the UDL for today. Can you share the code again for the polygraph? Because I'm in the Desmos and at the screen
yeah,
you can
totally. Oh, I'm excited, guys. I created this polygraph thing, and we just don't have enough time. I mean, literally, you could spend a day doing this. Let me go to that slide, okay? Oops, can you see it all right? It's a QR code. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm at the Desmos, my bad. Polygraph, here we go. Is that it? Yep.
Okay.
And I could put this in, yeah, you don't need the cost code. Here, let me move. Yep. I'll put this in the chat as well. Does that make it easier?
Yeah. Thank
but
you.
You can just, I find polygraphs, my kids loved it. And and it's a great way to encourage mathematical discourse. And if you look at the VDOE logs, they align to every single SOL and they include some polygraph activities.
I like the activity I put in the chat, that it's a good one for your students who have disabilities, but also your students who are learning the language, because they have a hard time just being able to articulate what's going on in there. Because one, they need to learn the words, they need to learn the vocabulary. And some of the students, just depending on their schooling in their previous countries, can can present like they have a disability, but they have interrupted schooling. So we have that issue going on in my school, that some children are presenting like they have disabilities, but that's not really what it is. It's in other countries, they may not go to school consistently. So they have huge gaps. So some of the instructional strategies that are kids that are in the special education program have kind of work for them, because interrupted schooling can do a lot to a student. So thank you.
No, Thomasine, you bring up some really good points. Thank you for adding that. Excellent points. And again, it's UDL, right? Should work for all kids. Yeah, great point. Thank you for sharing. And anybody else that wants to share anything too, please. We're all in this together. We're all learning. I learn things every single day. All right. I hope that was helpful for everyone and you found some information that will be useful in your practice. I am going to conclude our presentation today. Thank you for your attention. As Matt mentioned earlier, assistive and instructional technologies is a high leverage practice. In your materials is a checklist just to help remind you on how to implement some of these instructional technologies in your classroom. As Matt already said, aligning them with your instructional goals, looking at student engagement, does it align with the SOL, using some of those VDOE logs to help, and then explicitly teaching the technology to your students, as well as providing scaffolds and supports like vocabulary, graphic organizers, etc. And then for other students that need assistive technology, remember we have the SET framework where we consider the student's individual needs, the environment, the tasks, and the tools that the students need. And if you have an assistive technology professional on staff, or even hit up Matt or any of your other specialists to help you. And Matt, if you want to jump in here, feel free.
Absolutely. I just put this up there with that that we talk. I heard a lot of people comment that there's a lot of stuff. I'm glad we made a website so that you can go back and look at it and learn on your pace and do it. But just know that you're exactly right. There is a lot of stuff out there, and using things like the SET framework, accessing the AT network, you can see the website there, and the members of that, or somebody maybe on staff at your school can help you narrow down this huge ocean of resources to what's going to specifically work for your student and how you can implement it in the UDL framework that we talked about. And on that next slide, Catherine, if you hit that, this is a good starting place too, that you can access at the AT Network's website or through the presentation here, that you can say, my student is having a challenge in reading or in math in a particular area, and see some sample ideas for where to get started.
And then we've all been there. Just like you said, there is a lot of technology out there and it can feel overwhelming. So our advice to you, every year I would select one technology that I would become proficient in. And then at the end of several years, I was proficient in many. So if you just really focus on one instructional technology, I think that will be an accomplishment. So we have a quick Padlet QR code. What is the most important concept and technology that you plan to use? Let's see what some of our responses are.
Do we click on that? Or do we gotta download a?
Oh, here you go. Do you want me to put it in here?
Yeah, I was gonna say, put it in the chat and then they can
got
just
it.
go right to
I'm
it.
so sorry.
Oh, no worries at all. I should have done that anyway. Yeah, this is great. All righty. And then we've got our resources. And most of all, we want to thank you for your service. You really do make a difference in the lives of kids with disabilities. And you do change a life. You have chosen a profession that has lasting impact, and it's had a lasting impact certainly on my life. And I thank you for helping my daughter. Enjoy your summer. I hope your summer looks like that.
Thank you so much, Catherine and Matt. You did not disappoint me, and I knew you wouldn't. I knew that everybody would love your session. So we really appreciate you being the finale of the CTERM Academy. So just wanted to let everybody know